We are today, Ash, and I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, like tell people who might be listening who you are, what maybe this conversation is about, and what you hope from it. And
So this is the bit where I get really anxious. So I'll say it as we just spoke about.
yeah,
Um, my name's Ash Lucas. So I kind of reconnected, didn't we, over social media? I'm on a bit of a. It's been on my bucket list on something that I'm really passionate about is around mental health and in particular kind of men's mental health. And one thing I've been thinking about is doing a fundraiser and essentially kind of making my own charity to be able to raise the platform of men's mental health locally within North East Links. There's been some really sad news over the last couple of years about the increase of kind of men suicide,
Mhm.
and it's something that I have kind of seen from a really close perspective to me. Like I know friends of friends that have really struggled mentally and they haven't been able to kind of continue with things about how they're feeling. I think it's dead important that we do things, and I've got lived experience through poor and kind of challenging mental health around my time in the military and life, because like none of us get out alive, do we?
Mhm.
And I thought, can I use my lived experience and my passion for working with blokes and almost signposting people where to go to be able to help, even if it's just one person. And I know without oversharing, therapy has been massive for me. It's been able to kind of help me get through some really hard times. But at first, I was really reluctant.
Mhm.
I'm thinking, if I can do it, and I'm dead stubborn, and I know loads of other people that have accessed therapy and they've absolutely thrived from it. Um, if it works for one or two people, hopefully, you can reach a few more. And the I'm doing a run in September. I'm attempting. I'm going to do it, but 24 laps of Croxby, so it's a local running route.
Mhm.
It works out to just over 105 miles of hills, and I'm aiming to do that in 24 hours. And the aim is I'm going to raise enough money to fund therapy for blokes through working with yourself, and that is the main aim. But I've got kind of other goals within it, but getting people to access therapy for free to remove those financial barriers and the stigma around it, that is the mission.
I mean, that's quite something, isn't it, Ash? I mean, everything that you've said there, I don't really know where to start. There's so much in that. I guess what really struck me is when you said about not oversharing, and that was related to your own therapy. And
Yeah,
maybe I'm curious about that in terms of that feeling that it's somehow oversharing, if of that, because obviously it's through that experience and many others that have kind of brought you to the place that you're at now, where it feels that this is something that you're on a mission and you've got a real
yeah.
passion, and that's quite clear. But just on that oversharing, just wanted to maybe just highlight that and
Unpick a
what
bit.
that is. Just
Um, so,
like, yeah, go on.
so in my head, I've got the public, the personal, and the private. So everyone knows some stuff about me. My closest know a little bit about me, but only I know the kind of the intricacies, and maybe one or two other people. Um, when I speak about when I've accessed therapy in the past, it's been as a result of my time in service overseas, and it's something I can speak really widely about because I use it. I'm fortunate enough to do a lot of training within education and schools locally, and I use that experience to kind of talk to how our body responds to stress, and I speak through what I lived through to be able to talk about that.
Mm.
And other things, as I said before, life happens to us sometimes, and um, it's working with a therapist and therapy through therapy has enabled me to kind of really unpick it to myself. And there's just certain things that you keep to yourself, isn't there? Or you like with your close few people, but
Mhm.
it's enabled me to understand myself a lot more.
Mhm.
Because a lot of time, my initial assumption as therapy is there's something wrong with me, and there absolutely isn't. Things have happened to me, and I've experienced things, and I need a little bit of help and curiosity of others to get through it. And um, but more so, people may attribute soldiers been through war, and airmen and servicemen and women experience horrible things and needing therapy from it. But not always. Like lots of people have experienced things and they've been all right as a result of it. But more so, it's the everyday things that can get to people, in my experience, that they might need a little bit more support with, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And I think what you were saying there about feeling like there was something wrong with you, and that idea that you've now come to a place where you know that it's because of the experiences that you've had, that it's almost like a normal response to those experiences. It's no wonder that you may have been struggling because of the things that you've experienced. And I think often for men and for women as well, I think there's no sort of clear separate line between us as people that we
Mm.
feel a real barrier to, or we often carry a sense that there's something wrong with us because we're suffering. That it's our fault. There's
Mm-hmm.
something biologically wrong with us, or we're not good enough, or all of those things that kind of evoke that feeling that it is about us. And actually,
Yeah.
as we know, any kind of trauma, and it doesn't have to be that capital T war-driven trauma, or abuse, or it can be that we've been traumatized in lots of ways, and trauma really is the damage that it does inside of us. It's not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
the event, and so I suppose for you, having experienced therapy and being able to talk about it publicly in a way because it's related to being in the military. And from that perspective, you feel more comfortable in talking about it. Is that kind of what you're saying? If it's
Yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, I don't know if, sorry, I just put my phone on. To answer that question, I think it's more the image of the military because of Iraq and Afghan and other kind of conflicts recently. They're held in quite high self-esteem, or quite held in quite high esteem. I feel like Help for Heroes, some amazing charities that have really highlighted the bravery and the courage of the men, servicemen and women. And I think it's very understandable for them. There's a lot of empathy there. And it's, again, that was the easy thing to go to therapy for, I must admit.
because it was almost like there was a reason that would be acceptable to the society. It's sort
Yeah, and
of,
as a bloke, and I've done some really, you might call them masculine things. Like I've been to war, I've served overseas, and even some of the hobbies that I do, they're not your, if there's the right word to use, feminine sports. It's quite, it can be considered a very manly sport, but like, I mean, men and women do loads of different things, don't they? And it's the stiff upper lip. I saw a thing the other day about keep calm and carry on is an awful thing to say, or man up is an awful thing to say, but that's possibly ingrained in our like culture, our society. It's a very British thing, isn't it?
do you hear that still within your kind of networks and people that do you hear that as a
No, no, not the circles I keep, and kind of the friends that I'm fortunate with, almost the tribe I've got. Everyone's dead understanding. Like they'll give you a little bit of support when you need it. They'll can I swear on this?
by all means, yeah.
They'll absolutely hammer you and take the piss out of you if
Mhm.
that's what's needed, and they'll check in with you. And I've got mates like ex-military mates, mates I've had since school, and mates I've kind of made more recently when I kind of got out of the army. Like good group of blokes, and I think the tide is turning. And I see that on social media. I know algorithms can fit on different things, can't they? And it'll come out what you watch, and kind of more stuff will kind of fill that almost bias. But I believe there is a movement. There's loads of running clubs starting. There's like exercise groups. You see more people out and socialising, I think.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that's what I see on social media. And I worry about the people that look at that and think everyone's doing okay. Like the image social media can portray is this bloke's going to the gym 10 times a week,
Mhm.
spending loads of time with his family and friends.
Mhm.
But that's what's being portrayed on social media. You don't see the man, the woman, the mother, the father, the child, teenager, whatever,
Mhm.
sitting by themselves and wondering what everyone else is doing. You don't see that side of people.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think social media is a real, it's really mixed in terms of it can bring about some, really good awareness
Mhm.
and kind of people can feel less alone because there's a platform there to connect on, that hasn't necessarily been there back in the day, before all
Uh,
social media. But I think you're absolutely right there. I think there is a real concern that, if I consider people who have maybe, sadly taken their own life and often, even if we look in the public domain in celebrities that have perhaps
mhm.
it's almost like that real shock of, nobody ever saw it coming because what was presented online
Yeah.
and was in the media didn't really focus in. So I guess when you're talking about having these different parts of you, so you've got the public Ash, the personal Ash, and there was another one. What was the
The
one?
private.
Private? Sorry. So
Private, yeah.
yeah, and it's almost like the parts of us that we share, the parts of us. So we almost kind of compartmentalize ourselves into different parts of us that is okay for social media. That's the part of us that we reveal. And then
Mm.
underneath all that, there's all of that vulnerability and all of that struggle that probably is quite commonplace and in many of us. But how much of that do we actually talk about? How much of that dare we expose? And is
Yeah.
there and I really believe that we're entitled to privacy. So I guess what I'm not advocating for is that we spill everything to everybody. We've got to feel safe. We've got to feel, with the person or people that we're sharing with that it's a safe space to do that, and it will be received in a way that, will hold you in that. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that's what we offer in therapy. How amazing would it be if that is that sort of psychological space, that space, the connection between humans, that actually that is that too idealistic, Ash, do you think?
Um,
I'm being a bit too
I mean,
pink
a
and
perfect
fluffy.
world.
Well,
Perfect world for
yeah.
free, wouldn't it? And do you know what I find is like I do a lot of work in schools. It's often not knowing the right thing to say
Hmm.
or how the right way to respond to someone if they, let's say, they share something really difficult or they share they're anxious. Sometimes we don't know what to say, so we'll either take the piss out of them or we'll almost minimize what they're feeling or start something with at least. It's that empathy versus sympathy.
Hmm.
It's a skill, and sometimes it's a knowing what to say, like almost not having a script because we're not robots or actors, but having the right things to say to the person to encourage that. Oh my, did you call it psychological safety?
Yeah.
Yeah, how do we promote that, and how do we give people, everyday people, like everyone, how can we give them those quick wins to be able to support a mate in distress?
I guess for me, what comes up is that it's less about the doing. So I guess as we live in that solution focused sort of environment where everything is
Yeah,
about how do we fix this? How do we make
yeah.
things better? And so when we see somebody in distress, obviously we don't want to be we want to do something to comfort them. We want to maybe fix them because
It could be uncomfortable as well, isn't it?
it's
Seeing someone in distress
uncomfortable.
is uncomfortable.
And often when we're looking for that solution, it's really about we're trying to soothe our own sense of being uncomfortable.
Yeah,
And I think this is really difficult to sit and hear this. And so if I can find something to find a solution or find a bit of advice that will kind of take them out of that, then I also will feel less uncomfortable.
yeah.
I'm not saying that we're all selfish and it's all our intent is that we want to also soothe them. But I think it's more about less about what we say, but more how we really listen. how we really listen, how we show that we're listening. And
Hmm.
the words itself is of less importance, if you like, because I
Yeah.
think fundamentally what most people need is to be seen and to be heard, and to know that what they're feeling is being held in a way. It's not necessarily about I need you to do something in order to stop me crying, or I need you to do something. It's almost like, no, you have this space and I'm with you alongside it. I don't know the answers,
Mm.
but I'm going to be here with you. And I know that can be quite difficult in itself, because how often do we really listen to the extent of that we're not really thinking about what we're going to say next, you know?
Yeah. Are we listening to hear them or are we listening to reply?
Yeah, I do wonder.
Isn't that, in my experience, when, as I've said, I've had some tricky moments, some challenging moments. The best support I've had is just having someone that to sit alongside. Always let me, if I'm wallowing, if I'm in that kind of stage, just let me wallow
Mhm.
and just understand that. And it's the same with the kids I work with, and it's like they're not feeling very good at the moment, but nothing we can do can get them out. We need to give them the strategies or almost that the safe space to be able to do that. And the me of 15, 20 years ago would not have thought I'd be talking about safe spaces
Mhm.
at all. So it's just nice for me to reflect that I've been fortunate to be part of like some amazing experience in and out of the army, and I learned from loads of amazing people. And I've been dead fortunate with that. That I've had some really good mentors in everything I've done. Um, and yeah, there's been a lot of growth and change there. But the army me and the now me is not the same person in terms of maybe output, if that makes sense.
When you say output, you
Sometimes
mean,
you fit into the stereotype, don't you? I think sometimes, and I think that's very limited.
hmm. And so when you look back at yourself, the army, Ash, and who you are today, there's obviously been quite a process that you've kind of
Yeah.
gone through,
When
and
I left the military, it was brilliant. I left for 100% the right reason, spend more time with my family. So it was really impacting me, my wife at the time, and my kids. Even the dog was losing it, and it was a right thing to do, and I don't regret it at all. But the army was my identity from the age of 16 to 26, and I didn't know who I was after leaving.
Mhm.
Um, so I did a lot of reflection and a lot of kind of work on myself, if that's a cliche I can use, but understand like what can I take with me from the army, from
Mhm.
my previous experiences, what do I have to leave behind, and where can I kind of grow to now?
Mhm.
And it was a challenge. I mean, the army's your family, the military's your family. You meet your best mates there, who thick and thin, and what I've been able to do now, the gym I train at, I've got a great group of mates, and that has now become my tribe. But it took me
Mhm.
a while to get there. And I
Mhm.
think as men, if I can speak on behalf of men, like I feel we do need our own tribe. It doesn't have to be in a gym, it doesn't have to be in a running club, it doesn't have to be at the pub, but whatever's pertinent to you, your interests and your likes, like find your tribe, find where you fit in.
I completely resonate with that. And I think that, at Cudox, setting up, a team was, yes, it was about ensuring that we had therapists that shared the same sort of similar values, and,
Mm.
working in the not-for-profit sector, it's a different type of field, it asks of
Yeah.
us of you in a different way, and so I was very fortunate to. But I think for me personally, and I've spoken about this before, it's created a tribe for me, and it's taken me a really long time to find
Mm-hmm.
people that I feel I belong to and I belong with. And I think certainly for me, I've always felt a little bit of an outsider, and never
Right.
really found that I had a a sense of belonging, or actually maybe that I would almost present. myself to fit in. I'd kind of
Right.
change the way I was to feel that I fit in. And I know for a lot of young people that is often the case, but it can go on into adulthood. And I think I resonate when you say, you didn't really know who you was. You'd come out of the army and it was almost like that was your identity. And I think with the
Mm.
army, my understanding is that you're often stripped back, and rebuilt in a way to.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Yeah. Do you not
That's
do you not see that, or did
Um,
it feel different to
I
you?
find it hard. I always wanted to be a soldier. I always wanted to serve in the army, so I don't see it as stripped back and built back up again. I feel like the best and the worst parts of me are from the army, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't see it like that. Although that's so, it gets told, yeah, they'll strip you back and they'll make you into a soldier. I always wanted to be a soldier. There's nothing else I wanted to do.
Mm. Can I ask what it was? What it was that drew you?
They do good stuff, don't they? That's what I thought when I was a kid. Do really cool stuff, and war is gross. And I experienced a bit, not as much as loads, more than some. Um, and kind of all that weighs different on everyone else, doesn't it? Everyone experiences things differently, and some things you take with you, and some things you don't. But it was that I wanted, like the teenager me. He wanted to go to war. He wanted to jump out of planes. He wanted to do really arduous things. He wanted to
Mm.
do loads of adventure training and just experience everything that the army could have experienced.
You
Move
also,
over different countries and travel the world and all that kind of stuff. It fitted me as a person then.
I can hear the almost the excitement in that, and I can understand why that would have been something that would have really drawn you in. It's almost like that adrenaline, the kind of,
Yeah,
and I guess, is it fair of me to say? I don't know, but you know, it's again seen as something very masculine going into the army.
it's quite a manly job, isn't it? I know.
Mm.
I'll say, yeah, masculine is probably the better word to use than a manly job. But yeah, like men and women, like we like different things, don't we?
Hmm.
And it is quite it fits that can fit a stereotype, doesn't it?
But I suppose that also builds up into, the things that we're saying that and really not helpful when we talk about stiff upper lip or we talk about
Yeah.
manning up. And I have a bit of a sort of dissonance with resilience. And whilst I think resilience is essential in order for us to be able to withstand, difficult times, difficult emotions,
Mm.
it can often sort of mean a re-silencing of because we've got that expectation that
Yeah.
resilience is almost pushing it back down, not experiencing those things, kind of suppressing.
Yeah.
And when I think of depression, depression is ultimately a suppression of emotions. It's suppression of experiences and feelings that we've had, and we're pushing it down in the same way that, resilience can be interpreted or seen as an expectation that you're not vulnerable. You kind of
Yeah.
hand that vulnerability away. And
I think we need to almost rebrand resilience.
Mhm.
Um, there was a thing that kind of first initially brought my attention to resilience was there was a Making Generation R. So there's a charity called Blessma, British limbless British limbless ex-service men and women.
Mhm.
So it's anyone that's become an amputee, whether that's during war or kind of peacetime operations, or even like there was one person that I spoke to. It was an accident that happened when they were playing sport. But
Mhm.
anyway, this charity supports those as well as blind veterans as well,
Mhm.
and they trained a number of servicemen and women or ex-servicemen and women to in like the London Theatre School, I believe. But there was a
Mhm.
project where they'd go into schools and they'd do their talk, and it's absolutely like awe-inspiring. Some amazing men and women out there. I spoke to one woman that did it. So the horse in the Lloyd's TSB advert.
Yes, yes.
So she now rides horses but that she was in like a green suit, so she was riding the black horse going through the advert.
Oh, wow, okay.
And they speak about their story and the resilience they had to learn because of it. But it wasn't, yeah, I just got on with it. It was, I found this really hard and I did this. I got support from this person. So
Mhm.
resilience and amazing, like really, really moving. The amount of staff that cried during these talks, it was ace.
Mm.
But the funding dried up, which is a bit rubbish. But what resilience is to me, and I made a video on my social media a few weeks ago. It's about knowing what to do and having those strategies, and whether that's I'm feeling a bit down, I'm not feeling myself, I need to go do some exercise, or I need an early night. They are strategies, and
Mhm.
that's what increases resilience to me. Or even
Mhm.
if it's talking to a therapist, talking to your mate, texting your friend, even if it's doom scrolling for 10 minutes through social media,
Mhm.
that can bring you back to neutral or even kind of make you improve. And that's what resilience is to me.
Mhm.
Using strategies, but you don't just learn them by proxy, do you? You have to learn them. They don't just happen.
You do, and I also think, there's a for me, it's almost like how do we learn our emotional language? It's the same way that we learn our verbal language. We learn to talk through being brought up in a family who are also talking the same language, and we
Mhm.
don't sit down with a 6-week-old baby and start training them to speak. They pick it
Mhm.
up, through their environment in the same way that we learn how to express our emotion. It's something that we naturally absorb within our family. So if we're within
Yeah.
a family that actually there isn't an emotional language, there isn't a show of emotion, or that you're shamed for feeling something, then it's going to feel really, really tough
Yeah.
in those times that those feelings are evoked in you. And it's going to feel really, really overwhelming in comparison to maybe somebody who has been brought up in a family where, we can share emotion, we can feel it, we can express it, and it's accepted.
Mhm.
So I think there's levels there of, is that person less resilient than the other? No, actually, they've had very different upbringings, which has impacted their ability to be able to, and maybe that person that hasn't been able to show emotion because of their upbringing,
Yeah.
may actually be seen as more resilient because they're suppressing,
Yeah.
may actually be, celebrated for how strong that person is. Doesn't feel emotion. It doesn't seem weak, if you like. But actually, what that is a very suppressed person, somebody that has never really been able to feel vulnerable and feel safe in that. So
Yeah.
I think there is that. I think what you're saying there around finding the strategies and having things to be able to help during those times where it feeling really overwhelmed, reaching out to other people, having those connections. But for some people, that just doesn't exist. There are some
No.
very isolated and alone people out there, and
They're
they're
hiding in plain sight, I think, aren't they?
what? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Hiding in plain sight. You
Yeah.
might not even, you never know what someone goes home and lays in bed thinking about.
Yeah.
I think the one that picks out to me is like, I mean, everyone knows and loves him, but Robin Williams,
Yeah,
the amount of people he's made laugh, but the pain he must have been carrying behind those eyes.
absolutely.
And we can talk about things like hindsight's 2020, isn't it? We might see signs of someone that has been really, really poorly, but we never knew.
Yeah. And Robin Williams has got a very interesting history, if you look at his sort of upbringing, and yeah, maybe I'm repeating myself because I will constantly go back to that because I
Mm.
really do believe that, our upbringing and our childhood has a huge impact on the person we become as an adult. And
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure that we can really argue that in some ways. And I say this without blame on parents. I really do. I say that often our parents themselves are traumatized in different ways, and we do our best to, not pass that on to our children. But if we're
Uh-huh.
not aware of it, you do the best you can with what you have. But I
Yeah.
think Robin Williams has got a very interesting, upbringing, and if he was a child that was very alone, very had a heavily working mother and father, and a very stoic father who really wasn't there for him or couldn't be there for him. And Robin spent a lot of time alone,
Right.
very much kind of entertaining himself. And I think that's where his kind of love of acting and humor came from.
Yeah.
He had a very big sort of fantasy world that and obviously performance and things got him attention, and that was what he was very much lacking. And so, you know, I know he was had a physical illness up until he took his own life, and often people will look at that and see that maybe as a reason as to, why he did what he did. But I think when you look at, and this is maybe what gets overlooked some of the time, it's almost like, what's the story behind that? What was going on for someone at that time, and
Yeah.
we miss it, and we miss it, and it's
And
incredibly
there's two
sad.
really good books that I've read one and listened to another on audio book. The first one, I forget the author, but it's about veterans from Vietnam,
Mhm,
from the war over there. It's called The Things They Carried.
mhm,
And it's like we do carry our own baggage. Sometimes it's on our shoulders, sometimes we're dragging it, sometimes it's on wheels and it's dead easy.
mhm.
Um, in fact, three books. The Body Keeps a Score. I
Yeah,
won't try and pronounce the author's name, but
Castle
like
Van der Kolk, yeah.
that's well, you got room
Yeah.
after that, haven't you?
Yes, we have, yeah.
But like your body does store trauma, doesn't it? Like physiologically, our body holds on to it like within a nervous system. There's loads of research that's coming out around it. Even if we just think about our response to stress, if you touch a hot pan, your body's going to remove your hand from the pan because that senses this pain or
Mhm.
the stress before we do. Like the body does that as well, doesn't it? When we look at crisis behaviors.
Yeah, we've got
But,
body memory, we've got
yeah.
body memory from trauma. And
And the other one, Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey.
oh,
Oprah Winfrey,
wonderful.
What Happened to You?
Yeah,
Is such a good book, which is that massive curiosity around certain things like that. And he had like one thing. I don't know. I'd love your thoughts on this, but just because you've not maybe you had a childhood where emotions weren't spoken about, or it wasn't emotionally literate family that you grew up in, it doesn't mean you've had a bad childhood. It's just they're your experiences. And some people, no one asks to be resilient, I don't think, or for opportunities to be resilient through experiencing war and things like that. And no one wants bad things happening to them so they can get over them. But it doesn't mean if you haven't had them, you're not a resilient person.
Mm.
It's a complex thing, isn't it? And you can grow up in the same house and experience things completely different,
Mm.
can't you?
Yeah, and I think there are lots of kind of theories on that because I don't think any child in the same family is brought up the same way. You're brought up at a different time in your parents' life. If your siblings, you're 3 years apart, your parents are different 3 years
Yeah,
later as to what they were at that time. But I also think, what makes us have a different outcome sometimes is levels of sensitivity, and there is no real sort of predisposition to any kind of disorder. There isn't, they're not showing that,
mm,
often we'll think things like ADHD and, that actually that's something that's hereditary, it's passed down. And yeah, it may be passed down, but there's actually not that scientifically showing that it's a definite genetic link. And I
yeah,
think what they're leaning more towards is that it's trauma that's passed down in families. And when I say
yeah,
trauma, I don't always mean, like we say, go back to that. It's not necessarily a capital T trauma. It
yeah,
can be, but I think yes, if you're not brought up in an emotionally literate family or expressive family, it's the adaptations that we make. So if you were um, So I'll give you an example. So for myself, I was always told I was very sensitive and I take things too deeply and I feel things too deeply, and that I wanted to be, when I was younger, you wanted to be a soldier. I wanted to go to drama school. And I wanted to be on the stage, and I had this fantasy that, my name would be in lights and, all
Right.
that lovely stuff when you can be a child and you can go into that. But I was told that I was too sensitive and I would never be able to hack the criticism, and that I took criticism too personally, and that whilst it was constructive, you were kind of a too sensitive person for that. And
Hmm.
that has an impact. And so I think as children, what we do is, particularly in very early years, is that we have a choice to make. It's almost like, do I maintain the relationship with my parents in order to, and that means if I maintain a relationship with them, then I have to change myself in some way, because how I am right now, me being too sensitive, is not acceptable. Doesn't get the approval. It doesn't get the encouragement of doing the things that I want to do. So I have to harden up, or I have to toughen up, or I have to hide my sensitivity because it's not a good thing. Or do I choose authenticity, where I maintain my sensitivity and maintain all those things that I am, but I can lose the relationship with my parents?
Mm.
And it really isn't a choice for a child, because particularly at that very young age, we need our parents or carers. We can't survive without them.
Yeah.
So we choose attachment. So in those very, very early years, we adapt. We change. And so when you're talking about finding your identity after leaving the army, often we lose ourselves very early on in our life. The qualities and the things that the person that we were born into the world to be, we adapt and we change, because there are certain things within our environment, within our family, that are not acceptable. And the reason they're not acceptable is perhaps for them as parents, it wasn't acceptable for them when they were children.
Yeah.
That's how it passes down. You're shamed for feeling a certain way, you're shamed for being a certain way, and your parents will probably just want the best for you, and it doesn't mean they don't love you, but they don't know how to give you that because they didn't get that themselves.
I'm wondering how much of that is, it's like something that's unsaid and maybe assumptions
Mhm.
around certain things. Like maybe I'm just assuming, is there someone out there thinking, um, I really want to do this, but I don't think they'll accept it, so I'll have to do this. But meanwhile, if it was said out loud, they'd be absolutely encouraged to do that. So how many people build this? Talk about soldier, me kind of a little bit. I need to be this manly man, this provider, but I'm feeling really vulnerable. I'm not able to do that right now. But
Mm.
I don't feel comfortable enough to voice that. Although ultimately, I 100% knew I'll be supported by everyone near and dear to me
Mm.
to talk about emotions and feelings and things that I was finding really difficult. But I almost built up this stigma and stereotype for myself that I wasn't able to break free of.
Yeah, so that you had almost created an identity for yourself that kind of
Yeah.
trapped you in a way. It meant
Or,
that.
and it was for the most part because of the experience that I've had
Mm.
and kind of the person that I wanted to be. But sometimes you wrote yourself in a box. We're not designed to stay in boxes. Like labels belong on jars and not people, don't they? So it's important that we break down, and that's a big reason why I want to do what I'm doing rather, is to, yeah, you can be the manly man, the provider. You can do all that. You can go to the gym. You can box. You can compete professionally in different sports. But you can also be another person that's vulnerable, that will talk about the feelings. That will say, "I know it's okay not to be okay." So it's
And
about how many different hats and masks can we wear, and ultimately, can we take the mask out and be our genuine self? And it's, some people don't know what their genuine self is, and that changes over time as well, doesn't it? I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. I'm not the same parent I was for my elder two, Chelsea and Charlie, than I am to my younger Alyssa. Like we're different people, aren't we?
Absolutely. And I think, thinking back to what you were just saying there about you'd kind of created an identity for yourself and it almost kind of boxed you in. And it was like, even though I know that I could reach out to people and people would be supportive, there was something in you that was kind of blocking you from being able to ask for that help.
Yeah.
When you eventually did, just think about how much strength and courage that took to be vulnerable. You
Mm.
had to kind of break down all of those internal walls in order to be able to say, I'm struggling right now and I need help. So actually, vulnerability is strength.
I believe so. The old me wouldn't have said that though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would have called myself a right fanny. Just get
Yeah.
on with it.
And
You'll
how
be all okay.
and how many of that how much of that do you hear, that because but just in that example, it just shows what you had to go through in order to be able to actually speak out in the end and be able to say, I need some help or I'm really
Yeah.
struggling.
Do you know what it was, Angie? It was because I knew that support was there. I knew I've got really good friends, really good
Mhm,
family that would 100% have supported me through it. It
mhm,
was up to me to be able to. I'll tell my mate to go to therapy if he was struggling, or to reach out or to speak to someone.
mhm,
But I had to follow my own advice that I'd give to someone else.
mhm,
Almost detach myself and think very critically. Think, what
mhm,
would I tell someone else to do if they were feeling like I was,
mhm,
and just do that. Almost pretend. I think it might have been Ricky Gervais in Afterlife. He said
mhm,
he does an impression of a happy person.
mhm,
So
mhm.
let's do an impression of someone that wants to really support themselves.
That
Does
was
that?
that was an incredible program. That really was.
Oh, amazing! I've seen it a
Mm.
couple of times from start to finish. It's great.
It
But yeah,
was.
do an impression of someone that does that. Like, even if you're thinking about getting fit or going running or following a diet plan or making maybe more healthier choices, do an impression of the person that's doing that.
It's always the fake it till you make it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Like this, I'm very uncomfortable feeling this, but I've almost put a mask on over myself. Like, do an impression of someone who wants to be on camera and he's dead comfortable.
You're doing a very good impression. I mean, I would love to know what was going on inside of you. What's kind
I'm
of
very caffeinated right now.
you are?
Just, I'm very caffeinated.
Oh, okay. So I've gone on the decaf, so I've been yeah, off coffee for God, that was hard, I must admit.
It's a drug, isn't it?
Yeah, really
Yeah.
is. I didn't realize a proper withdrawal through that. But so the need for caffeine is what to kind of keep you going in during this, or is that
I've
just
hardly had any today. So what I know is if I didn't have a coffee when I got home, I've just finished it, I'd have a really bad headache, like withdrawals from it.
yeah, it's crazy,
So
isn't
I
it?
have to limit it. I really do.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's weird because actually giving up, I was really terrified that I wouldn't have the kind of energy and I kind of relied on it for that energy.
Hmm.
And yes, that period of getting off coffee was horrendous. But actually now I think I feel more alive. It's
Yeah.
a false, yeah, a real false sense of security, I think,
Uh,
So not that
if
I'm
you
not that I'm recommending and whatever, but it's
what
personally.
put me off coffee, a kid who I've worked with previously said my breath smelled dead bad. So you need to lay off the coffee so your breath smells awful.
But you're a teacher. Surely that's what
And
you're meant to have
yeah,
is
well, not a teach, but I work in schools, and
right.
it's almost that stereotype: elbow pads, lanyard, and coffee breath.
Yeah,
The
always the
stereotype for
way.
teachers.
Always the way. Always
Yeah.
the way. So I mean, the collaboration for you and Cudox and myself, it was really amazing seeing the video that you put out there, and
Oh,
you.
that was awful.
Oh, why do you say
Awful.
that? Why do
You
you
know
say
what? But
that?
then, like with showing that, it was showing a little bit of vulnerability as well, I guess. And things can. I first thought about kind of not producing it, but you can get apps and stuff, and people can do them for you. But now I want it to be genuine. Don't want it to be overproduced. I don't want it to be over kind of advertised. I want it to be raw.
Mm. You wanted
So
it
that
to
was,
be real. You wanted to.
yeah.
Mhm.
Because then I don't know about anyone else, but if I see a blue tick and loads of inspirational quotes, I'm not for that. There's certainly a place for inspirational quotes. There's certainly a place for positivity.
Mhm.
But I think behind that there needs to be a vulnerability
Mm.
of that, because
I think
otherwise
it
it
can
just fits into
quickly.
the norm, doesn't it?
It does, and it. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. It can quickly tip over into that toxic positivity. And I think,
Yeah.
that whole idea that we just switch our negative thoughts into something more positive, and
Mm-hmm.
that then it becomes like, well, why can't I do that? Because, I'm telling myself 25 times a day that, I am good enough, or, and
Yeah.
actually it's not as easy as that, that's on a cognitive level, but because what you've talked about, the Bessel stuff, Bessel van der Kolk, when he talks about mind and body, this
Mm-hmm.
is somatic, it's in us, we're holding all of that in our system, and it's not a quick fix. And
It's
so,
not, and it's in my. Sorry to interrupt you. It just sprang to mind. Like there's a difference in my head between knowing and believing.
hmm hmm
I know I'm very loved by my family and my friends,
hmm
but sometimes there might be a part of me that doesn't believe it,
hmm hmm
and that's belief is a powerful thing,
hmm
isn't it?
hmm
And it's like I genuinely know people can get better with the right levels of support, but it's whether they believe it or not. I get it's only my assumption, isn't it? It's only my opinion, but
hmm
we need to believe it, don't we? That we can get better and we can get over really, really hard times.
I think what you're talking about there is like hope, and hope can
Yeah,
be really powerful. And I
hope's
think,
powerful.
yeah, and I think often when we feel hopeless and we feel despair, it's for someone else to hold that hope for them until they can
Mm.
grasp it themselves.
Yeah,
And
and sometimes it's hard to think like that for yourself.
it
But
is.
there are people out there, and some people may feel very, very alone, and that's a really awful place to be. Like
Mhm.
guilt, shame, and loneliness is an awful feeling to sit with.
It really is.
It's a really isolated place. But there are people out there, and it's let's say you haven't got the maybe the friendship network to be able to reach out for, the family network. There are some very, very kind, helpful, qualified, personal people out there on the end of a phone, on the end of a webcam, or a webcam still a thing? I don't know.
I
Maybe
don't
certainly
know.
ages ago.
In my day,
The end
yeah,
of a camera
probably.
or the end of a website or um, around some kind of network that is they are able to give that level of support that people might need.
And I think that's really primarily why Cudox was set up,
Mm-hmm.
why
I love the message. I love the power of, and a big thing for me is I'm fortunate to earn a wage where I can pay for my own private therapy, and
Mhm,
I was able to almost skip waiting lists because I'm fortunate enough to be able to pay for it myself. But there are many people that can't afford it.
mhm,
There are many people that have to focus on paying the bills rather than paying that, and there's
mhm,
like a million people at any one time waiting on a waiting list for the
mhm,
NHS therapy, and it's an underfunded area, but it doesn't mean people shouldn't get that levels of support. So that's why I didn't even know of Cudox
mhm,
before, and I'm dead pleased. Like when I put that video on, and I put up on another one about kind of linking in with local therapists, because again, it shouldn't come out of the therapist pocket either.
mhm,
Like therapists, it's a people are passionate about it, but I'm very passionate that they should also be able to not lose money if that makes sense. It should be accessible for everyone,
mhm.
and that's dead
I,
important.
well, I think for us, we are unfortunately underfunded, and for the last 5 years, we've managed to fully fund clients to access therapy, and the whole sense is that if income should not be a barrier,
No,
and people. And I also firmly believe that when you reach out for support, it's there and then. If you
yeah,
you then are told that you're waiting, that, I mean, the courage it takes for someone to reach out, I think we've established how difficult that can be. So to reach
yeah.
out for support, then to be told, actually, we can't support you for X amount of time, it's
Mhm.
just not good enough. And And unfortunately for us, over the last sort of 6 months, we had made some difficult decisions in order to be able to keep Cudox going, keep our service alive. And we've
Yeah,
now had to implement a small charge, a contribution to our therapy. But although we still do have our student and volunteer counsellors that can offer that fully funded. And we're
yeah,
really, really hopeful and working so incredibly hard to ensure that we can get back to where we were. But the funding sector at the moment is, and for not just us, but for a lot of charities and not-for-profits are really struggling. So to be
yeah,
able to work with somebody like yourself, that not only because of the financial help that you're going to offer people in our community, but also to work with somebody who's clearly got a passion, who is brave enough to talk about from your own perspective. I think stories and our own narratives can have such impactful messages for people to feel less alone. So even just somebody hearing you talk today, I'm sure will have an impact on. But I think just as we kind of look towards the end of this conversation, Ash, I was thinking that what we'd kind of talked about before was we'd had some ideas about how your
yeah,
fundraising could really help support people and men in particular in access and support. But we'd also said that should we put this out to people in the community and say, how do you feel best that that money would be spent? What would be
yeah,
helpful
yeah,
for men out there? Is it that not only about accessing therapy and but is there anything else that could be helpful for
mhm.
them? And that, I guess that's our ask for this is, please for people to get in touch with us and say, what would help? What can we do to help? And I guess the same was for you as well, that you were feeling the same.
Yeah, yeah. So again, it's multifaceted, isn't it? Like an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So what early intervention could be offered? I mean, Andy's Man Club is huge and it's amazing. It's all over the UK, which is absolutely amazing.
Mhm.
But what about the people that aren't able to access that
Mhm.
for whatever reason? I speak about the finances again. Like some people do earn enough to be
Mhm.
able to pay for therapy, but if they feel it's not valued, then they're not going to go.
Mhm.
So let's say, cause like the funding that our people have kind of donated to us, we're going to use towards paying for the first therapy for blokes. That's right, isn't it?
Mhm.
To access. Let's say you're not sure if therapy is for you. You've got the money, but you'd rather spend it on a takeaway or take your family out for dinner. Like
Mhm.
access it for free. Like there's like no win. Like you're not losing anything other than maybe an hour of your time and a bit of parking.
Mhm.
So it's about
Absolutely.
we can remove those barriers, but also spreading, showing vulnerability online, like reducing the stigma. But what the next set of kind of videos that I'm going to be making is around strategies, kind of looking at what stress is, how we incorporate stress, how maybe our body responds to stress, and strategies. I think giving people or supporting people or putting strategies out there which someone might be able to use or even think about using
Mhm.
is maybe better than we've got out there currently, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And I think hopefully having people listen to this, they'll be able to feed back on what we're talking about. And, if this resonates and people think this is a really good idea and, we can be guided by the people out there, what they're telling us. And,
Yeah,
because I think ultimately that's important as well to hear from them. So,
yeah. And
um,
a huge passion of mine at the minute. I've spoken to some. Um, I'm working in the community a little bit with a school offer that I'm working on. Is the knowledge of actual mental health disorders and how to talk about mental health and how to signpost, for the most part, is limited to social media.
mhm, mhm,
And but I think what is important to me is to get out the message around what things actually are and how to actually have these conversations rather than someone's opinion. What
mhm,
are the research backed method and how can we give that to essentially every organization that employs X amount of people have an emergency first aider in their workplace?
mhm,
I believe there should be someone accredited and qualified to have a very basic understanding of stress and mental health within the workplace. Because I would argue, and again, I don't know the statistics on this, more days are lost through work, through maybe poor mental health and physical illness.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a whole body of research coming out around that and
Yeah.
statistics, but I think mental health is a big barrier for people accessing work sometimes. So the more we can get workplaces psychologically safe and therapeutic, people are allowed to be vulnerable and access work. I'm going to low battery. I think it's that important.
I totally agree. And I think, we also need to be supportive of those people that are supporting others as well,
Yeah, that vicarious trauma
Yeah,
potentially, isn't there?
all
Of,
of that. Yeah, all of
yeah.
that. So that's probably well timed if your battery's just about
Yes,
to go, that we could maybe close off here. But it's been absolutely lovely to talk to you as ever, Ash. And let's hope that people get on board and can leave us some comments and let us know what their thoughts after hearing this conversation.
absolutely.
And yeah, I'm sure we can maybe do this again. It would be
Yeah, I'd very much welcome that.
okay.
I don't know if I'm buzzing because of the caffeine or because of the conversation. We'll go for the caffeine.
Well, mine's not caffeine. It must be the
No,
conversation.
we'll go for the latter on then.
All right. Well, it's been great to see you, Ash, and
Yeah, you too,
yeah,
Angie.
we'll take care.